Greetings, guys and gals, this is XIJABERWALKIX bringing you the best in esports, and wait! Isn't that intro so sick? I mean, that intro is honestly probably one of the sickest intros I've ever seen from any Starcraft event ever. It's really cool. Just a little bit of a copy from the Pro League intro, but that's okay. Today we have a really exciting matchup. At the top right is going to be Flash for KT Rolster. This is the Winners League, obviously. At the bottom left, that means we have Fantasy as the red Terran player, and Fantasy is just tearing up KT, man. He is just absolutely killing everyone, and they have to put up Flash to stop him. This is going to be an epic matchup. SKT is up 3-1 on KT, and we are having some FPS issues, but we're going to get through that. This is on Benzene, 2-player map, spawning at cross positions, like always. And this map just makes for good old macro play, so we're probably going to see either 14 CC or 1 racks into CC, probably no rushes or anything of that sort. But I'm so excited because Fantasy and Flash are playing so well. Well, actually, Flash not playing as well as he has been, but still very, very much on top of his game. And Fantasy probably playing the best StarCraft that he's played ever. I'm going to make that bold statement, because Fantasy is just playing absolutely ridiculous. And we got to remember now that Flash is at the top right, Fantasy's at the bottom left. So don't want to mess that up. I just ate breakfast, even though it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I have a bad habit of sleeping in. Just ate breakfast, some honey bunches of oats. Got yelled at my mom for not shoveling the snow off of our driveway. Woke up a little bit too late. She did it, and now she's mad. Doesn't want to go to the gym, and that's how we get to the gym. Is I use one of the VIP passes at 24-hour Fitness to get in. So now I'm gonna have to go to the rec center and work out. I'm probably gonna work out while this is uploading. But let's get to the game. Both players making barracks. Nothing special about that, but ooh, Fantasy going for that refinery. So probably not going to go the 1 racks in a CC build. Both players sending out SUV scouts, going to see each other in the middle and going to know where each other are, even though this is a 2-player map. Just in case they, for some reason they're like, he might be at the top left or the bottom right. Just want to make positively sure, but obviously I'm just kidding. But they are sending out their scouts, and it looked like we did see a command center going down for Flash, I believe. So yes, the 1 racks in the CC, classic Flash build. Fantasy's going to see this. Fantasy probably knew that he was going to go 1 racks in the CC, so he's going to have to put some early pressure on to keep up economically. That Marine now out, barracks floating up, and this SCV is being a little bit annoying. Probably not going to be able to pick off this SCV, unfortunately, though. And very, very good switch by Flash, actually trying to steal some minerals and able to do so. So he's that much closer to being economically even with Flash. Actually, Flash technically is behind because he just spent his 400 minerals on a command center which isn't producing at the moment, but pretty soon he's going to be pulling ahead of Fantasy. Command center going down for Fantasy as well, and so it's just going to be a little bit delayed. He's going to be okay. He knows that he's probably not going to be able to put enough pressure on Flash to bypass this expansion altogether, so he is going to go for a little bit of a later command center, it looks like. Meanwhile, Flash scouting around, seeing if there's anything behind this line here. Bunker at the front for Flash as well. Now he's getting his factory, it looks like. And we have a Vulture out for Fantasy. So Fantasy, if he's going to be able to run by, he might be able to do some damage, but unfortunately I don't think so. Flash might get his SCV taken out, but no, he just escapes barely with his life. 2 factories going down for both players. Machine shop now up for Fantasy, so Fantasy's going to have his machine shop up that much earlier. It looks like he is building a tank, probably, if I could guess. And another factory going up for Flash, so we're at 3 factories. Machine shop going up on that factory. Machine shop is spinning, so I think that Fantasy is going to have siege tech before Flash, if that's what he's going for. He might be going for FPS issues. He might be going for mines, but I'm assuming that he's going to be going for Siege Tech, and Fantasy just being really annoying with this Vulture up here. Flash is going to keep having to pull his SCVs up to the north, and it looks like he's transferring a few as well. He's not going to be able to do any damage to that Vulture until he has a Vulture of his own or a Siege Tank. His barracks now has been lifted to that position, and it was mines that he was researching, not Siege Tech. So we have mines out as well. Fantasy getting a good scout out on all three of these factories with that barracks. Needs to be careful not to lose those Vultures. But we all know that Vultures glide across, so obviously they don't set off mines. And here comes a big little skirmish of Vulture versus Vulture. Flash gonna sneak a Vulture around, going to be able to kill off Fantasy's Vulture. Has 3 Vultures in the mix now, and 3 Vultures coming in for Fantasy, or 4 Vultures coming in for Fantasy. Gonna be able to pick off possibly these 2 Vultures, but not doing the greatest micro. Is probably gonna lose all of these Vultures, but it evens up actually. 2 Vultures to 2 Vultures, and these mines absolutely doing nothing to these gliding units. 4 Vultures in for Flash, now 3 against 1. Fantasy actually able to pick off 1, and so Flash comes out a little bit ahead with 2 Vultures. Fantasy just looks like his mom died or something. Looks crazy concerned, and he honestly really shouldn't be. Doesn't want to lose that barracks in particular, but I mean it's not really a big deal because he's going to be able to reinforce, so he needs to calm down. And 4 Vultures are just going to be definitely enough for Fantasy to defend against Flash's Vultures. Going to be able to get that barracks out as well. But the good thing about putting down that mine there is it's going to delay the command center for Flash. Here comes Vultures from Fantasy, probably going to be able to pick this off. It just looks like for some reason that Fantasy is not able to do as good a micro with his Vultures as Flash is, but he comes out ahead 3-1 in this exchange, doing a very nice job. All 3 of those Vultures ahead, and Bisu with the approving look, man. And why they put up, he's probably pissed though, because they put up Fantasy before they put up him. And I don't really know why they did that, because Bisu's just been playing amazing. Well, I guess Fantasy's been playing just a tad bit better, so I kind of get it, but I'm a little bit biased because I'm in love with Bisu. Huge Bisu fanboy, he's my favorite player. But both of them are playing very, very well nonetheless, and 3 mines now down at that command center, so he's just going to be absolutely annoying when Flash is trying to expand. But I think it looks like Flash has done the same thing to Fantasy, so they're pretty much at even annoyingness with their Vultures. Here comes a lot of Vultures, might be able to pick off that tank. Not focusing on the tank though, they're focusing on the other Vultures, not even trying to pick off the tank, getting past all of the units here, and Fantasy almost getting through, but no, good block by those Goliaths. Very, very good block there. So unfortunately, Fantasy cannot get in. He's going to lose both of these Vultures. Able to get about 1 or 2 SCV kills. Almost a good mine drag. Not quite. Flash defending that very, very well. He lost a few SCVs, but I think he's going to be okay. 1 SCV going down for Fantasy. Here comes another Vulture, and he has 2 more Vultures and a tank. Flash has finally gotten rid of that mine and is taking his 3rd, and Fantasy is a little bit behind in this aspect. He's not yet taking his 3rd, unfortunately. There are still mines around the field pretty much everywhere, and this is, I'm not the biggest fan of TVT just because of the whole, you can see Flash's mine is going to be super annoying in that aspect as well. But I'm not a big fan in TVT just because it's so like methodical, and it takes forever because both players are like so scared to push out and stuff like that. So not my favorite matchup. But here it goes. Siege Tank sieging on, might be able to get the first hit off on the Vulture, getting 1. Fantasy barely able to pull back in time, and so now we have a huge push coming out for Flash. Really, Fantasy doesn't have Siege Tech, I don't believe. His Siege Tech is still working, chugging away. Oh man, Fantasy's Siege Tech's not yet done, so he's going to have to back up. He's not going to be able to engage at all. That machine shop's still spinning. So that's a little bit unfortunate hit, but he's moving in anyways. Oh man, Siege Tank finally done moving in, trying to kill off these Siege Tanks, doing a very nice job. Only 2 more Siege Tanks for Flash. Flash is in a huge amount of trouble. Oh, and a huge Mind Drag going up. 1 more Mind Drag. Everything dies with that Mind Drag. Epic Fantasy, man. You just rocked Flash. But Flash isn't in a bad position. His expansion is going to be up first, so he's going to be economically ahead, and I think he's definitely going to be fine. So Flash still in a very, very good position here, moving 2 Vultures from the south, and he's just still got some mines in his barracks in the midfield. His third base is up and running very, very well, and it looks like some SCVs are transferring. Might be able to pick off these SCVs, but no, just kidding, those aren't SCVs. He's transferring his SCVs a little bit later, which is very, very standard, but he might have to wait even longer because that Vulture was able to kill off that SCV that was making the command center. Still not making the command center for some reason. He misclicked and he's not making it. Uh oh, that's a little bit bad. Fantasy, misclick, Mr. Misclick, and the coach is like, Fantasy, you moron, you moron. You think that that command center is being built, but it's not, and this could be really bad, man. That he's not focusing on that, because that's just going to delay his expansion even longer. Now transferring his SCVs, it looks like. Oh my god, Fantasy, epic fail. Epic fail. He's too focused on the rest of the stuff, but he's moving in now, and he needs to make this count just because that command center is going to be a little bit delayed. Well, actually a lot delayed now, and so he's going to have to do some damage to even it up economically. Here he comes, scan going off. Fantasy gets a good rally with his siege tanks, and Flash is in some trouble. Flash is going to have to back up now. Fantasy moving in yet again. Don't know if he's finished that command center. He's probably going to kick himself in the... I don't even know what I was saying. He's probably going to be really pissed. Oh my gosh! Fantasy! What are you doing? What are you doing? Finally realizing that his SCV was not on that command center and not showing too much concern, but I would have been like, wow, I am a big idiot, and now I'm in a little bit of trouble because Flash has had his third for a while, and you never want to be behind bases against Flash. Those tanks are fairly weak. Tanks going down, Vulture able to spot, and Fantasy just has a lot bigger siege line. He's not going to be able to get through there, though. This is pretty much as far as it's going to be unless he really wants to be risky and move in, which it looks like he might. He's unsieging his siege tanks, but that choke is going to be death. Death and a half for Fantasy siege tanks, and yeah, he realizes that, moves out. Drop coming in at 2 places. Uh-oh. Both places. Probably going to drop at that base as well as the main. This is going to be a little bit of trouble. Scan going down for Flash, so he knows exactly what's going on. He doesn't have any Goliaths, and so he's not going to be able to kill off that dropship, but the dropship looks like it retreats anyways, putting siege tanks, probably going to be put siege tanks on top of that ridge there. Siege tanks sieging up, and oh man, those tanks almost dying. Fantasy pushing in at the front here. No, not siege tanks, but Vultures. Vultures going to be super annoying at the back of that ridge. And another drop going in at the natural as well. So Flash, while he's getting pushed at his front, he's just being absolutely so annoying. Fantasy dropping in Flash's main. Oh my gosh, this game is absolutely insane. I'm so glad I actually got requested to cast this. So thank you to whoever requested me to cast this game, because this is a pretty exciting matchup. Both players just being super annoying. Tank being dropped by that Vulture, going to be able to clean that up, but Vulture's still in the main for Fantasy, being really annoying comparatively. And here comes more Vultures from Fantasy. We have Race out now, which are going to be absolutely annoying. This is the whole game of let's be as annoying to each other as we possibly can, which is usually what TVT is, but this is just ridiculous. That Wraith is just... this game is just absolutely insane. It looks like Fantasy is trying to secure his base at the top left. Unfortunately, though, he's not going to be able to do so until he cleans out those mines, and this Vulture is still being very, very annoying. At the back of Flash's base, this Wraith's going to be able to take it out, but that Wraith is not doing that much damage, and so Fantasy might get another SCV kill. He does have a good siege line right in front of Flash's base, containing him fairly well. Another command center trying to go down at that 1 o'clock position. However, there's mines down for Fantasy. And so that's not going to go down until he's able to clear that out. Scan going down right in front of Flash's base, so Fantasy looking like he wants to move in. Huge vulture line going up to that top left. Not going to really be able to do anything until Scan goes down to take care of those mines. So Fantasy can get down his 4th base. And neither player is really mined out at their main. So they're going to be at pretty much the exact bases that they have in terms of mining. Flash is at 4 bases now, I believe, and Fantasy is almost at his 4th base. Fantasy has just been behind in bases, but ahead in army, probably for this entire matchup. It looks like here he is massing a decent amount of vultures, probably going to put them into dropships for a drop is what I'm assuming. Flash rather, is actually not at that base. Building a command center. Here comes Fantasy attacking. Flash trying to get a drop off, but just too many vultures coming in. Tanks dropping in as well, and this base is going to get cleaned up. He needs to siege up! Siege up! Fantasy sieging up, and Flash is not going to be able to get through that choke point. Flash looking a bit concerned, and he doesn't want this to turn into another Light versus Flash game where he loses. So he definitely wants to win, definitely wants to show that he's the better Terran than Fantasy, because him and Fantasy have been compared quite a bit lately, especially because Fantasy is still alive in the OSL and Flash is out of both the MSL and the OSL, unfortunately. Spoiler alert, I hope you guys know that, because it's been like that for a while. Oh, might get some SUVs trapped, but no, looks like Flash not even attacking them. Finally turns around his vultures, taking 2 to kill off that vulture, but those vultures aren't going to be able to do a whole lot because Fantasy is there to counterattack, able to kill off that harassment, and is just keep pushing, prodding at Flash's front. Flash is in a whole bunch of trouble, and Jesus, a ton of mines now down for Fantasy at that bottom right position, so Flash is not going to be able to maintain that in the near future. He has taken the 1 o'clock position though. That base is up and running, as he did already build a command center for that base, and so both players are now at 4 bases, so even economies pretty much. But I think that Flash is still a little bit ahead just because he did just land that command center and it is up and running, and because of the fact that Fantasy epically failed and didn't build that command center at the 3-ish position for like 2 minutes. Like, it literally was 2 minutes that he had that SUV just sitting there doing absolutely nothing, trying to push in here at the 1 o'clock, not going to be able to do so. That siege line is just too powerful for Flash, and so he's not going to be able to do so. Here comes, oh man, losing quite a bit of units to these mines. Thinks that the mines are all done. He needs to be very, very careful. Very, very careful not to lose any units to a huge mine drag. That would be just absolutely terrible. It looks like there might be one more mine. Fantasy, meanwhile, is taking that 7 o'clock base and is able to drop and kill off some of those vultures on that line. Looks like his one of his naturals is completely mined out. Meanwhile, Fantasy at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish mining bases, it looks like 5.5 maybe. Looks like he still might have some minerals in his main, but you know, very, very good siege line for both players, and this is where I hate TVT just because it's so tentative, and Fantasy looked like he might want to move in here, but it's not going to work. Dropping right on these tanks, doing a very nice job. Mine drags going off everywhere. And here comes Fantasy trying to push in on the front as well. Don't know if he has anything else in those dropships. He does have more tanks. Very good mine drag there. Might be able to push in, but no, he just doesn't have enough vultures. And those 2 siege tanks, I believe, are going to be able to deter all of those siege tanks. All 5 of those, not really that many. But all 5 of those siege tanks going to be able to deter them, at least for the time being. Now we're going to Flash's point of view, and you can just see how crazy this is. When I first started watching, I was like, what the heck are they doing? Now I can definitely see what they're doing, but it's still ridiculously fast. It's very, very hard to follow them. On the minimap, we have a few of Fantasy now. Fantasy actually playing in orange, coincidentally. Usually players like to play in green, and their opponent is red usually. It's like a tan color, but it looks like he was orange at the very least. And so now looks like he might be getting another base at the 11:30 position. It looks like that base is now up and running. So Fantasy at 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll call it 4 mining bases, and Flash at 1. Flash is not doing so. Flash like at 2.5 mining bases just from the look on the minerals. That's a little bit bad for him. He's just had the economy, just not the positioning that he really needs, which is unfortunate because Flash has always been the macro-esque player and usually has very, very good micro and positioning, but not this time. This time he's not doing as well. Fantasy still has a lot of minerals to burn through, and Flash is going to have to put on some big pressure in terms of economy, because it's going to be absolutely hell. Here comes a huge drop. Missile turrets are in the area, but it's just not going to be enough. This whole base is going to get absolutely ransacked, unfortunately. Fantasy needs to do something to react. Might even go in for a huge attack here. Fantasy losing that 11:30 base. Going to push in at Flash's front. Just completely push in at this 3 o'clock base here. And here we go, dropping all over of Flash's units, sieging up as well, and this is just going to be absolutely epic. Boom! All those units attacking, but losing the units because Flash was on the high ground. Oh my god, Flash, wow, Flash is just changed the game completely. Without those 3 tanks up there, he would have absolutely lost. Now Fantasy is in a ton of trouble here. The KT coach is hoping, he's absolutely hoping that Flash is going to be able to pull this out. Reach is clapping, which is always a good thing. Who doesn't like Reach clapping? And Flash is coming in here, going to be able to take out this top left base. Took out the 11:30 base, which is going to leave Fantasy at more or less 2 bases, going to eve up the economy. But really, Flash just absolutely evening up this game, which was so epic. Those tanks at the top, at that northern position, just absolutely owning Fantasy. And you can just see how starved Flash is in terms of minerals. He's just mined out another base. And Fantasy looks like he's pretty decent in terms of the bases he is mining at, but Flash is coming in here. Here's a look at Fantasy's cam. He's in a lot of trouble. You can just see that he's pushing in a little bit at this 3 o'clock position, which is really crucial. But there's just so many units there for Fantasy. Players have their armies pretty much everywhere, but losing that 11:30 base was so huge. And then losing his entire army, I think he got a little nervous and just wanted to move in right away. Flash sieging up, trying to take this expansion, sieging up on 2 fronts actually. This is going to be probably bad for Fantasy. But Flash might lose his command center actually. There are Goliaths with charm boosters out on the field now. And so this turret's not going to be able to take out that command center, unfortunately. Fantasy trying to take this 4 or 5 o'clock base at the bottom there. Not yet Billy command center at the 11:30. He just doesn't have the army to reinforce it. He doesn't have the mobility. I mean, he has the dropships, but his army is just spread too thin. Doesn't want to risk taking both bases at once. Wants to kind of focus on this 5 o'clock base. And now, you know, Flash is just really mineral starved, it looks like, just from the look of it. It might be just because it's yellow, just because the yellow kind of overtakes the blue. But he just looks so mineral starved. It looks like he's only mining from 2 bases at this point. And I guess Fantasy is only mining from 2 as well, but it just seems like there's a lot less minerals on Flash's side of the map, comparatively. We do have a Science Vessel out for those upgrades, not necessarily for Science Vessels, because usually players just like to comsat the mines. And we're at +3 weapons, it looks like. No armor for Flash. And for Fantasy, if they click on some unit, I can tell you what's going on. Ooh, Flash almost trying to drop. Gonna back out of there, though. Doesn't want to lose too much of his units. Not a good idea, and it looks like this is just going to come down to a huge attack to decide who gets this base, and really whoever gets this last base here is going to be able to kind of win out the game. But Fantasy almost going for that top left, trying to take that top left, is going to be able to probably take out something or other. It looks like those tanks should be able to range each other for some reason. It looks like they are doing a little bit of damage, but huge. That base right there is huge. These 2 bases at the bottom are huge. The 2 bases at the bottom And the two at the top left are really the only ones with a lot of minerals left. They've almost kind of mined out the map. In that sense, Flash now taking the top left base, very, very risky. And there he's not going to nearly be able to reinforce as quickly as if he would have taken this 1130 base. So I wonder why he didn't take the 1130 base, to be completely honest. But really does want to take that top left. Fantasy now has a good siege line at that 530 base, although that's not really the one he needs. He needs that 7 o'clock base. So he's going to be able to defend that 7 o'clock base with that 530 position at any means. There's no way that Flash is really going to get around that unless he goes through the middle of the map, which Fantasy has a pretty good eye on. Here comes Flash with a huge attack dropping all over Fantasy. The dropships are way out of position, and I think that Flash knows this. He's going to be able to take out all these units. Fantasy's army was split in half. Fantasy does not have enough to reinforce this. Both sides sieging up, and I think that Fantasy's in a ton of trouble just because his army is so split up. He's gonna have to lift that command center and move it. Oh my gosh, man, this is absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible for Fantasy. Here comes a command center for Flash. Gonna be able to come back and mine at that base. More FPS issues. I really apologize. It's not me. It's the video quality that I have, my source that I have, but no complaints there. We'll just get through that. He does have that top left base, and he is taking the 5 o'clock base as well, and pretty soon he's going to have a ton of mineral saturation at that base. He needs to repair that command center as well. And Fantasy is just losing his grip on this game, unfortunately, is what it looks like, which is just absolutely terrible for SKT1. Even though they are up 3-1, they're going to have to put up Bisu or someone to fight Flash if it really comes down to that, because they've used best. And, you know, Fantasy's a very, very good player. They could put up Huck. Not Huck, but Hyuk. Actually, Hyuk. They could put up Hyuk. But I think they'll put up Bisu. Just because Protoss isn't really the greatest versus Flash. Flash is actually best. Actually, I think Flash is best against Protoss, to be honest. I think it's Protoss, Terran, and then Zerg is his worst matchup, but that's because he plays Jaedong all the time. Flash coming in for another attack. Siege tanks for Fantasy, sieging up just in the nick of time. It looks like he might be able to hold this off with that huge siege line, and he is, fortunately, but almost losing that base. But really, Flash has done what he needs to do. He's set up a siege line right in front of that 5 o'clock base, which is going to pretty much deter Fantasy from taking that and allow Flash to mine there considerably well. Scan going off as well, and the siege lines from both players just erupting at each other. Fantasy is going to come out behind. Unfortunately, he only has 3 siege tanks in that area. Dropships moving out. Don't think they have too much in them. And now Fantasy is again ahead in terms of bases drop going in. Maybe not even a drop, but I'm assuming that that was a drop there. Going in at that 1130 position. And so that's going to halt the mining, or, you know, make it so it's not as effective, because he's going to be able to kill off some SCVs at that point. Flash reinforcing with more units. And this game is just honestly slipping farther and farther away from Fantasy, unfortunately. He does have those 2 command centers right there, both with Comsat, which is kind of funny, since he couldn't maintain that 5 o'clock base. But Flash, all Flash really needs to do is maintain what he has at the moment and just kind of keep pushing in, keep picking off units from Fantasy, and he's definitely going to be okay. As long as he's ahead economically, he's definitely okay. And Fantasy needs to do something drastic. He needs to move in or do some type of crazy drop or something, because at the moment he's just behind and he's screwed. He doesn't have anything to where he needs to even the score up somehow. He needs to take out a base or take out some production like the main, take out some factories, or do something, but sitting around isn't going to get him anywhere. He's not going to be able to do a whole lot just sitting around, unfortunately. And now, oh, we have a physics lab up for Flash. So Flash is going battle cruisers. Flash is actually known for having probably the worst battle cruiser control in the history of the world, as we saw against Light, because he engaged at such a retarded spot that the Goliaths were able to engage him as well. He engaged in the middle of the field instead of on the ridge that he was originally on. And this is proving to be a classic TVT where where the match takes absolutely forever, and that's why I don't like Terran versus Terran. But I got requested to cast it, so I'm gonna cast it for you guys. I'm even getting a little bit tired just watching this game. It is entertaining nonetheless, but the thing about Terran versus Terran is Fantasy's pretty much already lost. Unless Flash really messes up, Fantasy has already lost. And so it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of waiting. And I don't really like that. You know, Protoss versus Terran in a lot of ways. There's Stasis and Recalls. In Zerg versus Terran, there's Swarms and Medic Marine play. But mech on mech makes for the least exciting matchup probably ever. The next match I'm probably going to do is another request I had to do, Jaedong versus Baby. Hopefully that doesn't spoil anything for you guys if you guys watching the Winners League or not, because I know it can just because of the format of what it is. Say Jaedong starts and Jaedong versus Baby isn't till like the 4th set. Well, you know what the score is then, so I apologize for not saying spoiler alert, but I think you guys can handle it. Here comes more dropships for Fantasy. Looks like he pulls back, not really wanting to engage at the top left just yet. SUV's getting suicided into those siege tanks, trying to free up some food so he can produce more units. And I'm really curious to see the upgrades for Fantasy, because I know that Flash went for +3 weapons first. I'm assuming that Fantasy did the same thing, but possibly not. Possibly he could have done something else, like maybe 1-1 and then 3 weapons or something of that nature. But it looks like he's just killing off these hurt. Flash is killing off these hurt missile turrets for some god knows what reason. But apparently, putting 4. I don't know if that was standard, because I used to always put 3. Maybe I was just playing like a retard, but putting 4, and we saw some other Zerg player oversaturate their extractor for some reason. And so I'm wondering what the optimum amount of... I always thought it was 3. I know for SC2 it's 3. But, well, let's see. It looks like it's 4. It looks like it's actually 4. So I think I remember. I don't know. I have no idea. It's been a while since I played Broodwar, but I know we saw some Zerg player. It was Sulky. It was Sulky versus Zero. Oversaturated his extractor for some odd reason. Here comes a drop from Fantasy. Fantasy now committing, losing a ton of dropships. Oh my God! This attack. Kind of, it works, but at what cost, you know, at what cost, because he just lost a ton of his dropships. I think he lost all of his dropships. There's just so many missile turrets in that area. Is able to take out this top left base, needed to do something, so that's very good for him, but at the same time, he's in a ton of trouble. This base is very, very crucial, as it is pretty much not mined out at all. It's pretty much not mined out. It's not really gotten mined. That's what I was looking for. It hasn't been mined that long. And it's one of the few bases with minerals at it, but Flash is starting to get some battle cruisers, and this is going to be really bad, unfortunately. Once Flash gets a ton of battle cruisers, Fantasy's going to be in a ton of hurt, because he's not going to be able to build Goliaths fast enough. He doesn't really have the minerals. He's going to be at one base, you know, one operating base, and you can't produce a ton of Goliaths off of that. He's already made quite a few, but you need a good amount of Goliaths to deal with a lot of battle cruisers. And not only that, you need a good positioning, you know, because this map is a decent map. We see carriers on this map a lot. It's decent for battle cruisers as well, but obviously carriers are a little bit more mobile in terms of using the ridges and such, but battle cruisers can do a little bit of that as well. Researching Yamato looks like it's Fantasy, so both players going for more battle cruiser-esque play. I think that Fantasy probably has scanned the battle cruisers coming out for Flash, so he knows that he's going to have to switch tech very, very soon. He needs to get up that extractor, so he's able to mine there. Fantasy taking control of the middle of the map, doing a very nice job there. And Flash is now running out of minerals because that top left base was really the only one left, along with that 1130 base actually that has a ton of minerals as well. And that 2 might have some minerals, so he's going to be at about 1.5-ish bases. Fantasy's going to be at 2 once he gets the mining down, so Fantasy's going to be a little bit of... Actually, that bottom, that 4 o'clock base probably has some minerals too. So they're going to be about even in terms of economy. And Fantasy looks like he's actually moving in here, trying to take out this base. Probably going to be able to do so. There's only 5 siege tanks. Uh-oh, Flash is in some trouble. Flash is in some trouble, moving in the battle cruisers, but no, he's pulling back. He's going to take the top left. It looks like he's going to try to take those top bases away from Fantasy. This could be absolutely terrible for Fantasy. Fantasy not utilizing his SCVs, kind of leaving them to not mine. That's kind of a bad decision. My hand, we just have a ton of starports out for Flash, and Flash has his battle cruiser army first, which is going to be terrible for Fantasy. Fantasy is going to lose this base, probably going to lose the top left, and he's going to be at absolutely no mining, which is going to be terrible. The only way he's going to be able to save this if he starts building missile turrets. He starts building a ton of Goliaths and just reinforces that top left base, because he can't lose that top left base. But I think that it's a little bit too late. He's not going to be able to do enough damage as he can. Almost able to pick off a battle cruiser. Yes, able to pick off 1 battle cruiser with those Goliaths. This Goliath force is going to be able to clean up everything, picking off the dropship as well. But at the cost of losing both of his mining bases. He has no mining bases now. He has absolutely no mining bases. Flash is at 1 mining base at the moment, that 1 o'clock position base. But Fantasy really needs to move in. And even if he does, I really don't think that he has the Goliath force to deal with this, unfortunately. He is building battle cruisers, does have Yamato cannons, but I just don't think he has enough forces. Here comes some battle cruisers killing off some dropship, but it's really not going to matter. It's going to come down to battle cruiser versus battle cruiser play. And so I think that Fantasy is in a little bit of trouble here. He's not even going to kill off those dropships. Really, just killing off those dropships would kind of help out Flash, just help him free up food. Pretty much, it looks like he's at like 150, can't tell, 160, 152, something like that food. And we have a lot of siege tanks still out for Fantasy. Fantasy really needs to do something with these siege tanks. Oh man, here come the battle cruisers, and the Goliaths are out of position. They're not even close to being in position. He does not seize these siege tanks. These siege tanks are all going to go down. This is going to be terrible for Fantasy, man. Oh, this is terrible. Oh man, he needs to reinforce with those Goliaths. He can't lose his siege tanks, because it's going to be really important that he has the ground units, and he's going to lose this command center though. Uh-oh. That's not going to be good, so he's going to still be at no mining bases. He's going to be absolutely mineral starved. Absolutely terrible. Flash is at 1 mining base, which is pretty much all you need when your opponent is not mining at all, unfortunately. Able to pick off that command center. And so now Fantasy still at a very big disadvantage. Unfortunately, his 2 battle cruisers are picking off that siege line. Doesn't really matter that much. It really doesn't matter. Flash might try to run these siege tanks, but at this point in the game, he's not really caring too much. His battle cruiser force is just so much bigger than Fantasy's is, and it's going to continue to get bigger while Fantasy's, unfortunately, is not. Is really just a delay until he's able to make a definitive push out. Fantasy trying to distance mine like a madman, going all the way down from that 9 o'clock base. Oh my god, that's ridiculous amount of distance mining here. And Yamato cannons going off on the siege tanks more than anything. These Goliaths might be able to pick off these battle cruisers. Able to pick off 2 battle cruisers, which is going to help him out a little bit. But distance mining, why don't you move that command center a little bit? Distance mining all the way from that 3 o'clock position to that top left. That's going to take forever. Might be able to pump out 1 battle cruiser in the next millennia or so. Flash seizing up some of his siege tanks on the siege line, and now we're at the standstill point where all Flash needs to do pretty much is maintain that base at the 5 o'clock position, because Fantasy is not mining at all. He's distance mining, which, I mean, you can't even call that mining. It's probably like a quarter of a base or half of a base. Not even close. Not even close. And it looks like more battle cruisers coming out. And so, you know, Flash has been ahead from almost the get-go. Fantasy was ahead, but until he got his army owned at the front of Flash's 3 and got his base taken at the 11:30, he's been behind, and that was like 30 minutes ago. And so it just goes to show you how monotonous TVT is and how long it takes these games to play out. Usually there's a big push. In usual games there's a big push. Someone puts some pressure on someone, and then the game kind of ends. You know who's gonna win. They know who's gonna win, but they just play it out anyways, just in case the other player messes up. But in TVT, they know who's gonna win, and little things like micro do matter, like those tanks at the northern position really changed the game. And oh my god, these SCVs are retarded. These SCVs screwing up terribly. It's gonna be so hard for him to distance mine. Oh, and they're glitched too. That's terrible. But really, we've known that Flash has been ahead this entire time for the last 30 minutes, and we still don't have a decisive winner just because it is so tentative, which is the only part I don't like about TVT. I think that TVT is interesting. The drops are definitely interesting. It's just the games are so ridiculously long that it kind of takes the fun out of it sometimes. Finally, Fantasy able to land at the top left, so he's going to have a mining base. But at this point in the game, it doesn't really matter too much because Flash is just so far ahead, has been mining at that 5 o'clock for so long. Really should think about pushing in here though, because if Fantasy is able to maintain that base for a while, another dropship coming in might be trying to drop at that top left. But if Fantasy is able to mine at that base for a while, excuse me, then he's going to be able to have an overfood army or a 300 food army to where both players are probably maxed out in food right now, but both players are going to be able to reinforce if they're both at mining bases. And so he needs to be very careful that he doesn't let Fantasy mine at that base too long, and he's honestly not. He's sending in a dropship now. They're going to be able to clean this up. There's no reinforcements anywhere near this base, unfortunately, and just as Fantasy gets this base set up, 2 siege tanks come in. Probably should seize up those siege tanks, to be completely honest, at least one of them, and leave the other one unsieged. But is able to kill them off nevertheless. And Yamatoing 2 siege tanks not going to really matter in the big scheme of things, but this drop is huge because it stops Fantasy from mining. And Flash is reluctant to move out, which is, you can see why, because this is almost the same situation when he was playing light, except he started the battlecruisers later, but almost the same situation to where he doesn't want to move out because last time when he moved out he lost. And so why would you move out if you're ahead? If you're ahead, you shouldn't have to move out. And so it's going to be up to Fantasy to move out, but Fantasy doesn't want to move out because he doesn't have as many units, and he needs his Goliaths to engage at the right time. He doesn't have that many battle cruisers. He doesn't want to lose like that. And so this is just going to go back and forth for a while, but it looks like Flash might be moving out! And this is going to be the last decisive battle. The Goliaths need to move in. The Goliaths backing up. Defense matrix going down on that battle cruiser. Fantasy's not going to be able to take this away though. Tank's dying. He doesn't have enough Goliaths, unfortunately. Forces moving in for Flash. This game's pretty much wrapped up. Fantasy GG's, and so it's still 3-2 with SKT up, but Flash is going to be hard to beat. They're going to have to put Bisu up or Hyuk, so we're going to have to see who they put up. If they put up Bisu, I'll probably cast it. If they put up Hyuk, I'll watch it, but probably not cast it. Anyways, long game, but if you like what you saw, please subscribe, give me a like, they're appreciated, and comment below if you have anything to say. Anyways, I'm out of here. Let's.